This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is October 17th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as usual, joined by my co-host Kevin Tucker. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Jonathan, I'm just sitting here. We're recording this Wednesday, October 16th at 8:52 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm thinking this time next week, it'll be halftime. We'll be halfway through our first Orlando Magic game of the season, which is really exciting. I'm like so fired up, especially because we haven't had Magic basketball in over a week now. So I'm just kind of craving it at this point. But yeah, very excited. Preseason game on Friday, regular season next Wednesday. Let's go, man.
So less than, it's 6 days from the time that you are listening to this. The season opener is going to be Wednesday, the 23rd at 7:30. The Magic will be in Miami taking on the dirty, stinking, freaking Heat. And I will be somewhere with hopefully, 150, 200 other Magic fans. I will be at the Social House. And do you want to know why, Kevin? Because that is going to be our first watch party of the year, partnering with the Orlando Magic and Michelob Ultra. Again, we'll be at the Social House, which is located at 435 North Alafaya Trail in Orlando. Going to be a great time there. Obviously, there's going to be Michelob Ultra. The Orlando Magic will be there. Probably some, 321 hype team members as well. And hopefully 150 to 200 of your closest Orlando Magic friends. If they're not your friends yet, they will be after this night. If you've never been to one of our watch parties and you usually sit at home, watch these Magic games by yourself, or you don't have anyone to talk to about the Orlando Magic, come out to this event, and that will change. I'll be there. I don't know if any of the other boys will be there. Kevin will not be there, unfortunately, unless he's going to surprise me.
No, unfortunately not.
But if you're there, please come say what's up. Cannot wait. Again, that's going to be next Wednesday, the 23rd. Game starts at 7:30, so the party will start around 7. We'll be at the Social House, 435 North Alafaya Trail in Orlando.
I think it's important to note, Jonathan, just again, for those that may be just joining us, maybe over the off season, our record with watch parties is very good.
Very good over the course of the last couple of seasons.
It's kind of weirdly good.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be, if you want to help contribute to that, I think the more people that show up to watch parties, the better chance we have to win. I don't have the scientific data to back that up, but I'm sure it's true. No, just kidding. But yeah, we have a strangely good record. So yeah, come next Wednesday, come hang out with other Magic fans, and let's root on the Magic to get a win in Miami.
Looking forward to it. Kevin, some Magic news before we get into really the bulk of the episode, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Deadline is coming up for Jalen Suggs' contract extension coming up on Monday. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. I'm getting a little concerned. I think a few weeks ago, if you had asked me whether or not I think a deal gets done, I think I probably would have, and I probably have said on this show that I think that it would. Now I'm not so sure. How do you feel?
I still feel okay. Again, I'm thinking back to the Cole Anthony deal. Was that last year? Was it 2 years ago? Last year. Wow. Time flies. It was similar. I don't remember his exact deadline, but if you remember that extension, I'm pretty sure it came in those days between the end of preseason and the start of regular season, right? Which lines up with where we are with Jalen. Again, I don't remember what Cole's deadline was, but more than likely it was similar. Regardless, I'm not worried. I still think it'll get done. They are leaving it late, so that definitely adds a little bit of tension, at least from the fan perspective. Who knows what conversations are like behind the scenes, but we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Hopefully there's no tension amongst, Jalen's camp and, the front office and all that kind of stuff, So anyway, I'm not worried yet, but we're definitely counting down the days at this point.
I mean, if you see Jalen talking to the media, after practice the other day, he doesn't seem like there's any kind of, bad feelings on his part. He's just like, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And he's like, I know they want me here. They know I want to be here. I love these guys. So I hope you're right. I hope that it gets done. And to me, it's just like, show this guy that you believe in him. It's a vote of confidence in Jalen. And I think that he's earned it arguably just as much as anybody else on the roster. Maybe he's not earned as much money as anyone else on the roster, but I think he's earned to get an extension done and not have to think about that, heading into the season. So we'll be paying attention to that. And then Saturday, the 19th at 5 p.m., the deadline to waive a player on a non-guaranteed contract per Bobby Marks. So we're talking about guys like Mac McClung, Jalen Slauson, Jarrett Culver, Ethan Thompson, Alex Morales. At this point, Trevelin Queen is still the only guy that we have signed to a two-way deal. So I think and I hope Mac McClung will be one of those guys to get the two-way. But the Magic are that's sort of still up in the air. No decisions seemingly have been made up to this point.
Yeah, and more than likely, we'll get some of that information as far as like players being waived of those 5 pretty quickly after the game on Friday. Like there's been a couple of years where, the game ends at 9:30 or so, and then by like 10 o'clock or 10:30, they're already releasing press releases about guys being waived. And it's like, man, they're still getting dressed from the game, So we might see that on Friday night, but regardless, definitely by Saturday, like you said, we'll see. Again, I'm with you. I think Mac McClung will be awesome. Obviously, these days, two-way players, they're not going to play as much as, guys did during COVID or whatever, as far as, actual NBA game time. But Matt McClung seems like a guy that's kind of gelled really well with the team. Even the moment we're going to talk about in a second, with the Franz half-court shot, he was one of the guys, running around chasing Franz and celebrating and stuff. And so it's good to see him. One of the guys that I think the team really likes. So hopefully he gets one of those two-way spots. And the third one, who the heck knows? Could be one of those other 4 guys. Could be a random. I don't know. But either way, yeah, obviously that'll be interesting to see on Saturday.
On our last episode, we mentioned that the Magic had waived Javonte Smart and signed Robert Baker to a training camp deal. That lasted like 3.5 days. Robert Baker has now been waived, and the Magic signed Alex Morales to a training camp deal. So it seems like they're just sort of shuffling guys around. I think part of the incentive is probably, hey, like we're going to sign you to a training camp deal with the understanding that you're going to play for Osceola this year. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Robert Baker still end up in Osceola. And it looks like the Magic are just trying to, get as many looks at some of these guys as they can, and get those guys some extra money, through these training camp deals. So that'll be something that we pay attention to. Kevin, a couple of outlets have released like their top 100 NBA player rankings. The ones that we're going to talk about today are going to be ESPN and going to be The Ringer. Now, something occurred to me the other day in terms of ESPN. They're talking about, I believe it was like the rankings or how they expect teams to finish around the league, and I almost got upset about what they were saying, but then something came to my mind, and that it's basically everyone that worked at ESPN, almost everyone, not everyone, but almost everyone at ESPN whose basketball opinion I really value. They basically fire all of those people. So when it comes to the opinion of ESPN, it's crazy to say this about ESPN, but to me, they're getting pretty close to like Bleacher Report territory, where I just don't really take their analysis very seriously. So when you see things like this, again, take it with a grain of salt. But we are going to talk about where ESPN and The Ringer has ranked some of these guys in the top 100. So starting with ESPN, at number 95 comes Mr. Jalen Suggs, who was not ranked in the top 100 this year. So that was pretty cool to see, Kevin. Jalen getting a little bit of respect. 95 to me feels crazy high, but the fact that he is getting at least a little bit recognition there is okay, I suppose, even though I don't necessarily agree with the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, to go from not on the list to on the list, it's something. They at least do a good job of acknowledging why he's there, the boost in his three-point shooting and obviously being named to the all-defensive second team, and also his durability. They note that he played in 75 games. All those are great things. 95, maybe a little high.
Jaime Jaquez, 86, by the way.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see that. Great.
Mitchell Robinson, 82. I don't think at this point, given his availability, he's better than Jalen.
Right. You don't
Jeremy Grant,
yep,
Fred VanVleet, like a lot of these guys, like Brandon Pojemski. I don't see that. Like there's just quite a few guys on this list here that's like, how do you see them as better than Jalen Suggs at this point? But
it's because they don't watch him. I mean, even the stuff they point out.
My point. Yes.
Even the stuff they point out, it's all stat based. So, but yeah, that's kind of
Let's throw all these guys into a spreadsheet, put a formula in there, and then we'll get a ranking, and then we'll see if we need to bump guys one way or the other a couple of spots. Is basically what stuff like this comes down to.
Just going back to your whole comment about ESPN, just to give you guys a glimpse of like how Bleacher Report-esque like ESPN has become. One of the top like articles or headlines on their NBA page right now is literally the Sabrina Carpenter curse. How teams have fared when she dons their jerseys. That is on the ESPN NBA front page on their website. They've become an absolute clown show over there, and it's sad. It's honestly sad because ESPN was awesome. But anyway,
can we talk about the fact that they ranked Wemby at 11?
I mean, we're at 95 right now. No, but yeah, I mean that's very
it's just
strange.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
like I understand Wemby's going to have 50 nationally televised games or whatever this year, and he's like their new cash cow. Once Curry and LeBron are going to be gone, and they're already donning him the greatest player of all time. But yeah, it's just pretty crazy to put. At this point, I really, truly don't believe that Wemby is a better player than Paolo. Will that happen? Potentially, but as of now, I don't see that. Let's continue to go down the list here. Next up, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at number 62. Appreciate the respect that our guy KCP is getting. Do I think KCP is 33 spots better than Jalen Suggs? Probably not.
No, definitely not. It's one of those things where I don't know if they're just giving him the nod because of the pedigree with the 2 championships or what, but like even last season with Denver, like I don't know that he was better than Chris Middleton or Malik Monk or some of these other guys that he is ahead of right now, which again, appreciate it. It's great, but it's funny if KCP played like he did last season in Orlando last season, there's no way he's 62, by the way.
There's probably no way that he's on this list.
On the list, exactly. It's weird. But anyway, 62.
To me, this is the probably closer to the group where Jalen belongs.
Right.
When you look at guys like Josh Hart is here, Desmond Bane, Alex Caruso, Kobe White, like Darius Garland's 57, Derek Lively is 56. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Derek Lively is not near Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün, guys that he's right below.
Yeah.
They still have RJ Barrett above guys like Darius Garland. Anyways, I'm not going to beat these rankings to death because again, we're talking about taking them with a grain of salt, but it's truly ridiculous. Anything before we move to the next Magic player on this list?
No, let's hit the two cornerstones here.
52, Franz Wagner, who was ranked 52 last year. Don't totally understand him like not moving up in the rankings at all, but he's at 52. He's just above RJ Barrett and Alperen Şengün, right below OG Anunoby at 51. LaMelo Ball is there at 50. Like when you go through some of these guys in this range, like I see the argument for a lot of these guys, over Franz. So I don't hate the ranking. Like James Harden at 41 feels a little bit too high for me. Then there's like Brandon Ingram, Derek White, Mikal Bridges, Trae Young, Drew Holiday, Scotty Barnes. Is Scotty Barnes 17 spots better than Franz Wagner? I genuinely don't believe that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Is Larry Markkinen 19 spots better than Franz? Like Chet Holmgren 20 spots better than Franz? Jamal Murray, like this like I don't know, 25 to 40 area on this list feels kind of shaky.
It's tough because I think the vast majority of those guys that he's behind, I think I'm okay with. But there are a handful, for sure, that I think are a little questionable. But by and large, I don't have a ton of complaints. I mean, I could complain about all of it, but with regards to Franz, I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
And then coming in at number 24, Paolo Banchero last year came into the season ranked 30th. So he is just above guys like Jimmy Butler, Zion Williamson, De'Aaron Fox, Kyrie Irving, and then Paolo. And then in front of Paolo at 23 is Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, John Morant, Tyrese Maxey at 19. And then like the further down that you go through this list, it's hard to argue at this point that Paolo is better than these guys, with the exception of Wemby, in my opinion. We don't have ranks like 10 through 1, but we all have a pretty good idea of the type of guys that are in that conversation.
Yeah.
Paolo probably isn't there just yet. Paolo's ranking was probably the one that I was like happiest with and had the least problem looking at the rankings around him.
Yeah, I again, there are a couple guys, but by and large, I mean, yeah, having him the 24th best player in the league, that it also lines up with his all-star voting last year.
Yeah.
One of the last guys to sneak in there, puts him right around the 24 mark. So yeah, again, a couple guys you could nitpick him being behind, but yeah, I'm not going to complain about him being 24.
Okay, let's move on to The Ringer. So The Ringer, I tend to give a little bit more credit to. Like, they're not quite as clickbaity as a lot of the other outlets, but I did find some of their rankings to be interesting. So let's start with who is the lowest ranking member of the Magic on this list. Spoiler alert, it's the same 4 guys, which, is good to see that there is a consensus of those guys being top 100 players. Coming in at number 86 is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, this is interesting. The Ringer has Derek Lively at 89,
right,
which feels much more in line with reality. But let's just look at some of the guys that are behind KCP. So like Kuzma, 93, Marcus Smart, 92, Nick Claxton, 91, Malik Monk, 90, Derek Lively, 89, Isaiah Hartenstein, 88, Emmanuel Quickly, 87, KCP is there at 86, and then just above him is Brandon Miller at 85, RJ Barrett at 84, Trey Murphy III at 83, Dante DiVincenzo at 82. I feel like when you look at that group of guys, I don't really have a ton of issues there. Now, as we move up the list, we might find some bigger issues, but I'm okay with this for KCP at this point in the list. But as you go up, it's like, is that guy really, 20, 30 spots better than KCP?
Yeah, I've got no issues with this, nor the next, ranking we're talking about with Jalen. I think the Ringer was far more accurate with those two than ESPN, which doesn't really surprise me. But yeah, 86 for KCP, sign me up.
67 for Jalen Suggs. So he's just before Jalen Johnson, who's at 68. Chris Middleton at 69. Nice. Brook Lopez is at 70. Devin Vassell, 71. Naz Reid, 72. Zach LaVine, 73. So the fact that Jalen is above some of those names is honestly, it's exciting to hear that. Again, I still take the Ringer's opinion on some of this stuff with a grain of salt, although it is a much larger grain of salt. Like, it is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a grain of salt that I take ESPN's opinion. The Ringer is at least like a full grain of salt. But Jalen's at 67. Michael Porter Jr. is at 66. Jaden McDaniel, 65. Kobe White, 64. Bradley Beal, 63. Herb Jones, 62. Alex Caruso, 61. I don't love Kobe White being at 64 ahead of Jalen Suggs. Like, that to me just feels like it is like clearly like an offensive thing, which is great, but I just don't find him to be more impactful than Jalen Suggs. Some of these other guys like Bradley Beal, you could argue that he's sort of washed. I feel like he belongs like right in line with Alex Caruso. Like, I feel like Jalen's probably just a step behind of Caruso because we've seen Caruso be able to do like the 3-and-D stuff, for a longer period of time. Like Jalen, it's really just the past year, where Alex Caruso, it's been like the last 5 years he has, more longevity doing that. But overall, I don't really hate Jalen being ranked at 67.
Yeah, I like it much better than ESPN's, and it makes a lot more sense. And again, there's some guys you can nitpick, but this overall, section of guys feels much more in line with where Jalen should be versus, the ESPN one. So yeah, 60. And it's kind of crazy to think about, like Jalen Suggs, thinking all the way back to year one. So here we are going into, well, no, this was his 3rd season, going into his 4th season, up to the 67th, potentially best player in the league. Like, what an arc as it continues to go up too, which is really, really cool to see. But yeah, 67 is good with me.
Next is Franz at 56. So we talked Alex Caruso's at 61. Then we have Fred VanVleet at 60, AG, Aaron Gordon at 59, Darius Garland at 58, DeJounte Murray at 57, then Franz at 56, Jarrett Allen at 55, Cade Cunningham at 54, LaMelo Ball at 53, Julius Randle at 52, Draymond at 51. Like, I don't, like, what are we doing? He's clearly not the same guy and can barely stay on the floor because of his, antics. Then we've got like OG at 50, DeMar at 49, Brandon Ingram 48, Desmond Bane 47, then Evan Mobley at 46. And this is the area where I sort of have an issue, is like Şengün at 43, Chet Holmgren at 41, Scotty Barnes at 40, James Harden at 39. Like, are those guys, 15, 16, 17 spots better than Franz Wagner? I don't know that I agree with that.
It's hard because so many of those guys are just in totally different roles, than Franz, obviously. And so that's sometimes where I, kind of play the game in my head. If you swap Chet Holmgren with Franz and like Chet gets more of an offensive, role, as far as, his playmaking or his, whatever, how does Chet do in that role? And in my mind, he doesn't do nearly as well as Franz, and so it's just one of those things, situations kind of dictate some of that. But yeah, Franz being, what was that, 56, pretty much in line with ESPN, who had him at 52. I think obviously the big thing people are looking at is a 3-point shooting. If he shoots even 3 ticks better at, 31% even, I imagine he's up higher on this list. But people look at that 28% number and get a little freaked out, and I think that's partly why we see him where he is.
It doesn't seem like they're looking at the total body of work, because this is a guy who, shot under 30% from 3 last year and still shot basically 50% from the floor. Yeah. Like, I think I understand the concern, but I also feel like they're putting too much weight on that. It's not like this is a guy who's just not impactful if he's not able to make threes. He was still very good. Like, you could make the argument last year that if he doesn't have the ankle injury, that maybe he gets some all-star consideration. Would he have been selected? Probably not, likely not. But I do think there would have been more conversation around Franz, and the Magic probably would have won a few more games, during that time, and they would have been further up the standing, and maybe you would have got more consideration there. But just some of the conversations, like you and I, we were listening to the quick clip from The Ringer from the Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo, Joe House, where they go through and they do the NBA over-unders every season. And we listened to the 8 or 9 minutes where they talked about the Magic. And most of that conversation or argument, one way or another, they all settled on the over for the Orlando Magic at, 47 wins. But most of that conversation came down to Franz Wagner, his 3-point, ability. And yes, that is a big question mark for the ceiling of this team. But I think people are still severely underrating just how impactful Franz was, even though he shot, 28% from the floor last year. And last but not least, coming in at number 30 in the Ringer's rankings is Paolo Banchero. Now, he's just ahead of Lauri Markkanen, who's 31, Karl Anthony Towns, 32, Siakam, 33, Trae Young, 34, Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder at 35. And then just above Paolo, they have Jamal Murray at 29, Tyrese Maxey at 28, Damian Lillard at 27, Kyrie at 26. It feels like with Paolo and a lot of the guys in this area, like you're really splitting hairs. Like, I can understand the opinion or why you would go one way or another with a lot of these guys. Like, if we said Paolo or Sabonis, I understand your case for Sabonis. Same thing with Kyrie Irving. Like, when you're doing like a 1-to-1 with these guys, the biggest issue that I have on this list is Kawhi Leonard sitting there at 18 and Jimmy Butler sitting there at 19. Mm-hmm. The reasoning they have for Kawhi Leonard is number one option lockdown defender and overall best player on a championship team. This is going to be 6 years ago going into this season. Like, he is not that guy anymore. Like, talent-wise, sure, but the guy just cannot stay on the floor. And Jimmy Butler, I truly believe, age 35 season, this is going to be the year that he shows that he is really not that guy anymore. And I just don't think that Jimmy Butler is better than Bam or Zion or De'Aaron Fox. Paul George, you could argue that. John Morant, jury's out, kind of have to wait. He's really missed most of the last 2 years. But when I saw that at the top of this list, I'm like, people just cannot help themselves for like falling for the Jimmy Butler like shtick. And I've never been a believer. I am proud to say that I have never in my entire life, and I'm sure that you would agree with this as well, when people were trying to convince me that Jimmy Butler was this superstar level player, I never for a single second believed that he could be the best player on a championship team. Never, ever, ever. Never will be. Never could be. Dude sucks. The Heat suck. Miami sucks.
That's right.
All their Heat fans suck.
Yep.
It really makes me angry to see Jimmy Butler ranked at 19 here.
Now, I hope we beat them on Wednesday after saying all that. But the only thing I'll say about Paolo being here,
that's going to be really great.
Yeah, it's
and
going to be rough.
This clip somehow finds its way to like Miami Heat Twitter and Reddit, all of that. That would just be awesome.
Yeah. For me, when it comes to Paolo being 30, what I think is most interesting to me, and same thing on the ESPN rankings, like he's the only guy in this entire top 30 who has only played 2 seasons. Like that, if there's a silver lining here.
Oh, don't forget, I think they had Wemby at 15.
Well, sorry, I was going to say except for Wemby, excluding him. But you take out Wemby, and it's like, okay, I think some of these other guys are getting the nod because of the longevity, right? And because of the experience in the playoff, things that they've had, But just 2 seasons for Paolo, and he's already 30th in this rankings, and whatever he was, 25 or whatever, 24, I guess it was for ESPN. So what I love about the Ringer ones is their analysis is always much more in depth and well written. Some of it's kind of funny, and their headline for Paolo is a crystalline pure hooper who just happens to be built like the Undertaker. Just kind of a funny way to look at it.
That's good,
but it is good, yeah. And so I'm again, you could split hairs about some of these guys, but being top 30 in the league after 2 seasons. We got a good one. And that's what this reminds me, really, these rankings. As much as you can argue about certain guys and throw shade at ESPN, which I love to do, but still to have a guy in the top 30 or top 24, depending on your rankings, after 2 seasons at 21 years of age, future is bright no matter what they say.
So we're about to talk about some over-unders, but I have one over-under for you before we go into that.
All right.
In these rankings next year, over-under for Paolo Banchero, ranked 20th. And I guess over in this case would mean like 19 and above. Under would be, 21. Okay. If we're talking about like where we're betting, okay, that's the way that this would work.
I know.
So just accept that for what it is. But what would you say?
If you give me 20 and a half, I'll go over. Yeah. I think he could be 20th next year. Yeah. 2019, something like that. Yeah.
I'm going to go over. I'll say like 19, 18, like somewhere around there. I think that's pretty realistic.
I don't think he's jumping top 10 or top 15 or anything like that.
No. I think
he could sneak in the top 20. Yeah.
With time, that will happen. Yes, we've got like LeBron James, who's in his 21st season. We've been saying this, it feels like for the last 7-8 years, but the guy's got to fall off at some point. Right. Like Paolo, is going to make his way into this. Like KD's sitting there at his 17th season.
Right.
Steph at his 15th season. Like some of these guys are inevitably going to start to decline a little bit, unless, everything that we've known about sports for the past 40 years has just completely changed now with modern medicine or whatever. But yeah, so I'll put that at the over.
And the other side of it is, of course, Paolo eventually going into his prime. Like if you look at the top 10 here, it's season, 9 seasons, 6 seasons, 11 seasons, 6 seasons, 8 seasons, 7 seasons. Then you have Steph, KD, at 15 and 17. AD with 12 and LeBron, of course, 21. So like give Paolo a few years, but that year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, his prime years, top 10 for sure.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from our sponsors over at Jam Hot Chicken. We are proud to announce that we have re-upped our partnership with Jam Hot Chicken again for this season. It went so well last year. They're such a good group of folks over there. The food is absolutely fantastic. We love what they do so much over there. Jam Hot Chicken is proudly serving the city beautiful, and they are bringing Jam's culture and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida, located over there at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. Follow them at Jam Hot Chicken on all social media. Head over to jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, online ordering, music playlists, and all things Jam Hot. When you go over there, if you're ordering the Sando, the box, whatever, be careful with the heat. They are called Jam Hot for a reason. Whatever you would normally get at other establishments, you're probably going to want to start a level below. And then when you go back the next time, because let's face it, you will go back. If you want to go up a level, feel free to do so. Jam Hot is now available on Uber Eats. So if you're local to Winter Park, you don't want to leave the house, but you want that sweet heat, that Jam Hot delivered straight to your door, you can do so through the Uber Eats app. And be sure when you stop by, tell them the boys over at the Six Man Show sent you to Jam Hot Chicken.
This episode is also brought to you by the more than 120 patrons who financially support the Six Man Show. Big shout out to all of you, but especially today, shout out to Tom Gadsden, Paolo and Franz's Warmth, Keith Wallace, Dalek Lopez, and Bueno Times. They are 5 of our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons that support the Six Man Show. Additionally, we always shout out brand new patrons, and this time we get to shout out El Magico, who joined at the Hall of Fame tier. Big shout out to you for joining us. What is Patreon, or our patrons? They're the people that financially support the Six Man Show, whether it's episodes like this, the Six Man Show post-game live, our watch parties like what's coming up on Wednesday, all the gear that we use, everything is all possible because of our patrons. Like I said, we have over 120 of them right now, which is amazing. Big shout out to all of you for supporting the Six Man Show every month with your patronage. We're always so grateful for that. We never take it for granted, and we're so grateful. So big shout out to all of our patrons. If you want to join our Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. Again, different tiers that you can join and financially support the show. So thanks to all of our patrons, and let's get back to this episode.
Okay, we're going to have some fun here with some over-under. So you guys may have never heard of this guy, but his name's Luke Sylvia, fan of the podcast for a long time.
Who's that?
Just joking. Our beloved former co-host who has left the show and is now dead to us. No. He sent over some fun ideas for like some over-unders, which is really honestly coming at the perfect time because we had planned on being able to talk about like Magic basketball, all that kind of stuff the last couple of episodes. But because of the hurricane, obviously we couldn't talk about that, on the last few shows here. So Luke has gone and given us some over-unders, and we're going to go through these here, just give our opinions, and maybe have a little bit of discussion about these, Kevin. Anything that you want to add before we just jump right in here to the first one?
Luke just couldn't stay away. That's all I'll add. Couldn't stay away, even for a few months. Had to come back and influence the show. No, just kidding. Yeah, let's see what he's got for us. I haven't even looked at all of these, by the way. So we're gonna be
perfect. Yeah,
reacting to these on the fly.
I'm gonna be interested to see what we think about these. So the first one is going to be Paolo Banchero points per game over under at 25.5 points. Last year averaged 22.6. Kevin, I will let you start.
25.5. Man, that's tough. I feel like I gotta go under just barely. I think I might go under on several of these. I think I'm gonna go under, but just barely. I could see him at like 24.5, 25, 25.4 even. But yeah, I'm gonna go under.
I am also going to go under. I feel like he's going to be right there about like 24, 25 a game.
Yeah.
Part of that reason is like adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the offense. I think, he should score a bit more than we saw out of Gary Harris last year, but maybe it's sort of like a, rising tide raises all ships or whatever the hell they say it is, where like just because KCP is going to score more than Gary doesn't necessarily mean that Paolo can't score. And the goal is hopefully to just have an overall better offense.
Right.
But really where I think not that points are going to be taken away from Paolo, because I do think he takes a step, but I think what limits the step for him is Franz also getting up over the 20 points per game mark. Like I would hope Franz would be somewhere around like 21, 22 points per game this year. Mm-hmm. If you told me that Franz still averages like 19.8 or whatever it was from last year, then I would probably give Paolo the over. But I expect Franz to take a little bit of a step there. So I don't know that Paolo will get over 25. I wouldn't be shocked. But for now, like if I was betting, which is kind of what we're talking about here, I would probably say the under, and I would put him right at like 24.5, 25 points per game, like you said.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. We all want the Orlando Magic offense to be better this year, right? Like, yes. We don't care how. We just want it to be better. And so it's interesting to think about, like, if this Magic offense is better, it's not going to be because it's more Paolo hero ball, right? Like, it's...
I wouldn't say that's outside of the realm of possibilities. He's definitely capable.
Of course he's capable, but what I'm saying is there were so many times... And they actually, the clip we just listened to from the Ringer, they don't get everything right. But one thing they did get right is how many times last year, regular season and playoffs, was our offense totally stagnant and they just gave Paolo the ball with 10 seconds left on the shot clock and said, go do something, right? I wouldn't say that's always bad offense, because that is not uncommon in the NBA with superstars, right? Obviously. but we'd like to have fewer possessions like that and more possessions with better shots. And so if that happens, ideally, Paolo will be given less of those kind of bailout opportunities, which on the whole would be better for the team if it works out like that. Will it work out like that? I don't know, but that's partly why I'm going to go just under the 25.5.
Next up here, Franz Wagner, total points, rebounds, assists per game, 30.5. Last year, he was at 28.7.
I think I'm going to go over on this one. 30.5. Yeah, he averaged, what was it, 19 something? Well, I don't remember what his decimal point was for points last year, but even like you said, even if that goes up a point, that puts you at 29.7 and give him one more assist a game. Yeah, I'm going to go over. I'm going to say over the 30.5.
Yeah, last year was 19.7. I'm going to say over as well because, like I said, you want to see Franz at 21 or 22 points per game this upcoming season. We've talked about him, needing to rebound the ball a little bit better. Last year, he did improve his rebounds from the year before, 4.1 up to 5.3. And maybe want to see him above, 4 assists per game. Last year was at 3.7. If he can get to like 4.5. So you add a rebound, you add an assist and a half, you add, 3 or 4 points there, and then you're over that 30.5. So I think you and I both agree on that. Next one, Jalen Suggs stocks per game. 2.4. Last season was 2.0. I'm going to go under. Almost a half stock a game feels like a bit much. I could see him being at 2.2 or 2.3. Even if he doesn't improve at all on that end, like Jalen is doing just fine in that department. Like that's not something that we're saying we need to see more steals and more blocks out of Jalen Suggs. Like defensively, he gives you everything that he has, and on most nights is the best defender on the floor. So I'm not going to be mad at all if we don't see an increase from Jalen, and like almost a 25% increase from Jalen feels like a lot.
Yeah, under for me as well. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, I think he could definitely do 2.5 stocks this year. I think he's freaking Jalen Suggs, but no, I'm definitely going to go under as well. It feels like a pretty big leap, and if you're thinking about, especially because he. I wish I had these numbers in front of me. What was his steals last year versus his total stocks was 2, and I think it was like 1.6 and 0.4 or something like that. His steals versus
1.4 steals and 0.6 blocks
okay,
per
had
game.
it backwards. 1.4 and 0.6. Like, do I think he can get up to 2 steals a game? I don't know. That maybe, but I'm going to say just under. I'm going to go just under as well.
If this accounted for deflections, right? Like stocks obviously do not.
Yeah.
But that's really where I think Jalen's like biggest asset is. Not,
right.
Other than like just like ball stopping, but just his ability to like force deflections and force chaos.
Right. Now on the flip side, now that you got me thinking about it with what's happening in Orlando, KCP is also very good with deflections. So if he's getting deflections and Jalen is actually grabbing those and getting steals, maybe his steals numbers go up, I don't know. You could talk me into it. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to get crazy, Jonathan. I've talked myself into it. I'm going to say push. He's going to average exactly 2.4 stocks a game this season. Just because of KCP's deflections, Jalen's going to be scooping him up for steals. I'm going push.
All right, next is how many minutes per game will J.I. play this season? Last season, he played 15.8, and Luke has set the over-under at 20.5.
That's a good
for Jonathan
one.
Isaac.
That's a great number, Luke. I'll give
you
that
what?
one.
The eternal optimist is going to come out of me here, and I'm going to say over. I'm going to say Jonathan Isaac plays 21 minutes per game this year, and I think a big element of that is the emphasis that they are putting on him to learn the 5. I think that is in order to get him on the floor more. Maybe take some minutes away from Wendell. Maybe the injuries that have been piling up the last couple of years with Wendell, maybe there's a concern. Maybe they need to limit his minutes a little bit. So again, you can't really put a caveat on an over-under. It just sort of is what it is. But if he is healthy, I'm going to go ahead and give him the over, and that's my answer, the over for J.I.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think I'm going to go the under. I think they probably have him right at 20 a game. Again, you talk about percentages, and again, I know it's totally different. He was not healthy most of the year last year versus hopefully a fully healthy year this year. When you talk about a jump of 5 minutes per game, that's a 33% increase from last season. That's a lot. That would be, I would be thrilled, but that would surprise me. So I'm gonna go right at 20. I'm gonna go the under, and I definitely feel like if we're talking 20 and a half, I definitely feel like the under, even in like 16, 17, 18 minute range, 2 to 3 minutes under that is more likely than like 2 to 3 minutes over. I can't imagine him playing like 24 minutes a game. Like I can't. Can you picture that? Like
no,
that
feels, I'm at 21.
Right,
I'm not.
That's what I'm
22
saying.
or 23. That would be crazy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go under. That's a good number though. I like that.
Let's move to the next one. How many teams will finish ahead of the Magic in defensive rating this season, more or less than one? Or I guess the over-under is at 1.5. Last year, only 2 teams finished better than the Magic. It was the Minnesota Timberwolves, who had a defensive rating of 108.4, and the Boston Celtics, who had a defensive rating of 110.6. The Magic finished third at 110.8. Kevin, over under 1.5 teams finish above the Magic in terms of defensive rating.
I am going to, I just have a hard time with all this optimism. I'm gonna say more teams are above the Magic in defensive rating. That's what I'm gonna say. More teams. More teams than 1.5, I should say. I think could be 2, could be 3 again. I think both of those teams, obviously Boston, I think is right there. Minnesota will be interesting, with their new lineup and Julius Randle, and I don't know how that's going to work out as far as their defensive rating, but I'm sure, that there might be 1 or 2 other teams. So I'm going to go more than, I don't think it's going to be a lot. I could see the Magic being 3, 4, 5, something like that in defensive rating this year.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the Magic will be the best defensive team in the NBA this year. Adding Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, basically swapping out Markelle Fultz and Joe Ingles for Anthony Black and Gary Harris. I feel like you're just going to get better defensively there. I don't feel like Minnesota got better defensively. I don't feel like Boston got better defensively. But I feel like the Orlando Magic got better defensively. Our hope is that the Magic also got better offensively, which will mean that the other teams are taking the ball out of the net more and just not able to get right out into transition off of long Magic missed threes and rebounds. So because of all of that, and because of my eternal optimism, and we do have to have a bit of homerism and bias on this show, I am going to say the under for 1.5, because I think the Magic are going to be the best defensive team in the NBA this year.
Love that. Sign me up.
All right. How many teams? I don't like this one. How many teams will finish ahead of the Magic in offensive rating this season? More or less, so under, over 17.5. Last season, the Magic were 22nd in the league in offensive rating, according to NBA.com. So over, under 17.5 teams having a better offensive rating than the Magic.
I'm surprised we were that good at 22. For this season, though, 17.5 means that Luke's number is us being 18th best offensive rating in the league. Can we jump? What is that? 4 spots? Oh, man. Gosh.
This one is really hard.
This is tough. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think we jump 4 spots, which is painful. But again, I can't handle all this optimism. So yeah, I'm going to say, what is that? More teams than 17.5? Yeah, I'm going to say more teams. I'll put us at like 20, maybe 19. But yeah, that's where I'll put us.
So I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, but unfortunately not optimistic enough to say, under 17.5 teams. I'll have us at like 18. I think that's a reasonable jump. I feel like we made improvements. The biggest question mark for me are going to be Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black.
Yeah.
If those guys can be the real deal in facilitating the offense in their, respective units, then absolutely we can. But it's just one of those things where the offense has been so bad for the Magic for so long.
Yeah. You're
not just going to convince me that all of a sudden we're going to be roughly in the top half of offensive efficiency. I have to see it before I will believe that. But if this was like 18.5, you might get the under for me, but now I'm going to say over, and I'm right there with you. 18, 19, probably somewhere in there.
I'll also add, you mentioned Jalen and Anthony Black. I'll add Cole Anthony to that mix. I think just all 3 of those guards, all for different reasons, all three of them, if we're going to have a leap offensively, they all have to play their part. Again, very different roles for all three of them. But yeah, so I think those three guys will be the make or break when it comes to this offensive rating question for sure.
How many times will a Magic player score 40-plus points in a game this season? Over-under is at 5.5. Last season, this happened twice, both by Paolo Banchero. Franz Wagner did have a game where he scored 38, which was his career high. So it was almost 3 last year, but he's putting the over-under at 5.5.
Under. This is a quick one for me. Under for sure. Like, if Powell is having to score 40-plus points 6 times this year, I don't know.
So you don't think Franz does it at all this year?
Okay, let's say Franz does it once. Powell's going to do it 5 times?
I think there's the potential that Franz can do it multiple times.
Sure.
This year.
He's got to hit some threes to do that.
That is correct. I'm going to say over because I think Paolo has 4 of them himself this year.
Wow.
And I think Franz gets there, and those are probably the only guys capable of this.
I was
point,
like, who's going to be your third one?
But you never know when you're going to get like a Corey Brewer, like Mo Williams,
Terrence Ross.
I was going to say it. I was going to try to premise that with we're not disrespecting Terrence Ross.
No.
But you never know when you're going to get one of those games. I do think the Terrence Ross 50-point game is less surprising than the Corey Brewer or Mo Williams. Or even the Brandon Jennings, 50-point game.
Here's the thing. I just talked about Cole. Cole is a guy that could do that. Like, he has the skill set.
The Jet Howard 40-point game?
Jet Howard 40-point game going to hit But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably, if you were to ask me, rank the guys on the Magic who could drop 40 in a game, it'd be Paolo, it'd be Franz. And if I had to pick a third one, it might be Cole. Like, I can picture Cole going off on a random night at MSG. Cole. Yeah, So anyway. But yeah, I'm going under for sure on that one for me.
Next one. What will Franz's percentage be from 3 this season? Over under 33.5%. I'm going to say over because I have to, the optimism within me, I have to believe that he gets back to his mean and what we were accustomed to seeing the first couple of seasons. For that reason, I'm saying 33.5. Go ahead and say under because I know that's what you're going to say.
How could I not, right? Like, as weird as it was, I sit here and say, how is it going to be possible for him to go from, 28%, 29% to over 33.5? Like, how is a 5-point jump possible? But at the same time, we saw a 5-point drop, basically, going into last season. So, I'm going to say under.
If Jalen Suggs can go basically like 10%, 2 consecutive years, I have to believe that Franz can go, 5%.
If you asked me this 2 weeks ago before preseason, I probably would have said over. But speaking of over, he's over. He's 0 for 4 in preseason right now from 3, which we've talked about.
He is 1 for 1 in practice half-court shots, which we didn't talk about that at the top.
Yeah.
Coach Mosley literally canceled practice on Wednesday because after their film session, he told Franz, if you knock down a half-court shot in 1 try, I will cancel the rest of practice. And Franz stepped up and canned it. And I honestly was not expecting a group of grown men to go that crazy over a professional basketball player hitting a half-court shot and practice being canceled for the day.
Although, you talk about grown men, if you look who swarms him, none of the old dudes are there. You don't see Gary or KCP or whatever running around. Although Jonathan Isaac, kind of trotted out there a little bit. But yeah, all the young guys definitely swarmed him and stuff, which is fun. But the fact that, Franz might need to take more half-court shots than just normal threes, I guess, right now, because he's 100% on those versus 0% from 3 in preseason. But yeah, I'm going to go under on that, under that 33.5%. But hopefully it's close. Hopefully it's like 32, 33, but I'm going under.
How many Magic players will shoot at least 37% from 3 this season with a minimum of 100 3-point attempts? 7.5 is the over-under that Luke has set here. Last season, 6 Magic players did this. Joe Ingles, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell, Caleb Houston, Gary Harris. AB would have qualified, but he only had 94 attempts. So last year it was 6. Now the over-under is at 7.5. So over would be 8 or more.
Right.
And then the under would be 7 or below.
All All right. So basically, when you're doing this math problem, essentially, you got to think about basically you're swapping Joe Ingles for Kenny, KCP, right? You got Jalen, you got J.I., Dell, Caleb Houston, Gary Harris. Anthony Black, you assume, is going to get more than 94 attempts from three this season, obviously, if he's going to be solidified as the second string, lead guard, which it obviously looks like he has. So 6 last year, that gets you at 7. Is there anyone else that you can see taking 100 threes a game, or 100 threes a game? No, 100 threes over the season and shooting at least 37% from three? Can you think of anybody else to add to that? You think Jet will get an opportunity? Or Tristan? You think either one of those guys will get an opportunity to get 100 attempts?
Anthony Black got 94.
I know. He started 20 games or whatever it was, though.
Right.
So I don't know. Was it? I think it was 20 games.
Around, give or take.
Right. Something like that.
Around that.
100 isn't that. You're right. If Jet is able to come in
33 and played in 69.
Started 33. Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. But then we'll I'm going to go under on this one again.
I'm going to go under. I think it's 7.
Yeah. I think, So we had 6. So if you add AB, that's 7.
Unless Franz shoots 37.
You all have been listening to the 6-Man show. We'll catch you guys next time. Just kidding.
Man, I promise you, Kevin, I know that you're not rooting against Franz. I know that's not the case. But if he comes out shooting, even though it won't be deserved, I'm going to let you hear it. For all the crud that you've given him.
It's not crud. It's concern. I'm scared, Jonathan. It's been 12 months of this, okay? I'm scared.
It's fair.
Franz is my second favorite player on this team. I love him to death. I think he's great. But I'm just scared. I don't know what happened. I'm scared that he's been broken. What?
Who's your favorite player?
It's probably just got to be Paolo right now.
But it's funny that you were so quick to say he's your second, and then you kind of struggled to say who your first was.
I know.
That was interesting.
Because part of me would have said Franz, because I still just love. I love Jalen too. Gosh, now I'm second guessing everything.
Yeah, it's like 1A, 1B, 1C,
right?
1D,
like
1E, 1F. It really is.
Your children.
It really is.
I've got 15 favorite players on this team. So
yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to say the under. Next, how many All-Stars will the Magic have this season? 1.5.
Under.
Is the over-under? I'm going to say under.
Under, yeah.
I think Franz can get in consideration. It just feels like, especially in really both conferences, but as we were making the case last year for Paolo, it's like somebody that's deserving is going to be left out. Unless the Magic are like a top 3 seed come, like voting time and Franz is at that, 21, 22 points per game, then I could see him getting voted in. But I will say right now, my gut feeling is 1.5. And that's not to say that I don't think Franz is an all-star caliber player. It's just there's only so many spots to give out.
And you also got to think about some of the front court players that have moved to the East, like with Karl Anthony Towns,
Paul George, right?
Exactly. I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but it's gonna be tough to sneak in there for anybody. But yeah, under for me, pretty easy on that one.
Next, how many playoff games will the Magic win this postseason? The over/under is set at 5.5.
This one's interesting. The number is interesting.
It is.
In my mind, 4.5 would have been a cool number because it's like,
did the Magic win a series or not?
Exactly. Will the Magic win? If you're saying 5.5, then you're saying the Magic are going to win a series. It's just a matter of how many wins they get in the second round.
Right.
I'm curious what your number is. I'll ask you first.
Listen, somebody's got to be the optimist here. I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna put it at 6. I would be happy with that. If the Magic lost 4-2 in the second round, I would be elated with that.
Yeah, 4-2 in the second round. That puts you likely against a Boston, a Milwaukee, a New York, maybe Philly, whoever. Yeah, you win. You take them to 6 games. Yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
This is tough. This is tough because my heart. I'll end on an optimistic note. I'm going to say over 2. I'm going to say over 2.
No. Don't do that. Tell us what you actually think.
I'm not going to tell you what my brain says. I'm going to tell you what my heart says for once. I've used my brain this whole exercise, and right now I'm going to use my heart to close it out, and I'm going to say 6. I'm going to say over 5.5, and in fact, I'm going to say the number is 7. I think they can take the second round to 7 games. and lose in another heartbreaker 7th game. So I'm going to say,
all right, now what does your mind say?
my mind says under. Probably, but
so where would you fall? Like if I put the line at 4.5, what would you say?
Gosh, now you're putting me really on the spot.
If I put it at 3.5, what would you say?
3.5. So that's basically over. You win a first round. Under, you lose the first round. I think I'd still go over. I think the Magic. Again, it's all depending on the matchups, but I think right now, as I sit, I think the Magic can win the first round series this year. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, this was great, Luke. Appreciate you putting these together. This was a lot of fun. It was more agonizing than I anticipated it being, but no, I think this was fun. So, we have a game coming up on Friday. So, if you're listening to this on Thursday, the next game is Friday. I'm pulling that up now. I believe that tip-off is at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yeah.
It's a Friday night in Orlando.
No Embiid, no Paul George.
No Paul George. So the Magic have to win.
Gotta win
this game. It's going to be on Bally Sports Florida. So being able to hear from Dante Marchitelli, David Steele, Jeff Turner, Kendra Douglas. And this just came across my Twitter feed a little bit. Ryan Bass is going to be back this year doing some of the pregame, halftime, postgame stuff. I don't know if this is a hot take. I haven't really seen people talk about, Ryan on social media a ton, but I was skeptical. I didn't really know Ryan all that much before last year. Like I don't watch Rays games, and he does a lot of the Rays games for Bally, but I thought Ryan was like awesome. Like I was genuinely great. And like pleasantly surprised at how good he was last year. So, those are mostly going to be the road games. I'm guessing that David Steele doesn't travel for. Dante Marchitelli's doing the play-by-play, and then Ryan Bass will be in studio with Brian Hill or Bo Outlaw, one of those kind of guys. So welcome back, Ryan. I wasn't sure that he was going to be back, and the fact that he is really awesome. And Kevin, I'm sure you already saw, but the Trop is not going to be ready for next season.
No shot.
So have you looked into that at all? Like, does anyone have an idea of where they play? I know Oakland's getting thrown around a lot.
Well, no.
That would be crazy. To me, what they should do is they should just play at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, have 10,000 people there, have every game be sold out, and then Stu can see how much of an idiot he is for not moving that team to Tampa.
Well, that's been one of the places thrown around. Disney, Wide World of Sports has been thrown around in Orlando, Central Florida, which would be interesting. No one knows for sure. It's all rumors and speculation, obviously. The big sticking point with Steinbrenner Field is, who owns that? It's the New York Yankees. Are the New York Yankees going to allow
where would the Tampa Tarpons, play?
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure the Tampa Tarpons.
Lots of question marks.
Yeah.
Lots of question marks with that. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's all a mess, quite literally. Jonathan, I wanted to go back to Magic broadcast because there's also some news this week, on the radio front, that Terrence Ross, who did some radio games last year with Jake Chapman, and Michael Carter-Williams, both joining the Orlando Magic Radio Network team, for in-game analysts, which is pretty cool. Again, Terrence reprising his role that he had in several games last year. Michael Carter-Williams now coming on that team as well. So that'll be fun. If you don't already, definitely tune into some Magic radio games. Jake does an awesome job on the call. And then, you'll get to hear some Terrence Ross and some Michael Carter-Williams in there as well, which will be cool.
I think it's awesome, and I think it's just like another thing that we can point to be like, the Magic organization is awesome, right? Like, people talk about, ownership, DeVos family, all that kind of stuff. Like, you can say what you want about the family and like their politics, whatever, but the way to like that you can tell about the way that they treat people is the fact that people continue to come back, right? Like you could argue like, okay, well, where else are they going to go? But like Michael Carter-Williams, even after the Magic didn't bring him back and he was rehabbing his ankle, was at the practice facility every day, like training and rehabbing and all of that kind of stuff. And to a man, nobody ever has like bad things to say about the Orlando Magic organization. Like, you could talk about Jason Williams, but like whatever, like that's a rare one-off. Gilbert Arenas is another one, but I think we have enough evidence to prove that he's just a moron.
He's a clown.
And probably, didn't handle that situation the best, but like by and large, everybody just like comes back to this organization, talks about how great they treat people and everything like that. So I'm happy for those guys. Obviously, we're usually watching the TV broadcast, but what is always fun to me, like we've seen it with Jake Chapman over the last couple of years, whenever there's a big play during a Magic game, like getting the call of that later on to me is always a lot of fun. So I'm happy for those guys. If you aren't able to watch a Magic game, that's always a great way to follow along with what is going on, listening to those guys on the Orlando Magic Radio Network. And yeah, just excited to have Orlando Magic basketball back on Friday, Kevin. And then we have, it's basically just like a long weekend. No Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But then Wednesday, we are back at it. And again, we are going to be at the Social House for our first watch party of the year. That game tips off at 7:30. So starting at 7 o'clock, we'll be at the Social House located at 435 North Alafaya Trail in Orlando. Looking forward to that. And then really looking forward to the home opener next Friday against who are we playing opening night?
Brooklyn Nets.
Brooklyn Nets. Why is that eluding me? But yeah, looking forward to that. Going to be a great week of Magic basketball. And then we're like right back into the swing of things. And I was talking to Carmen about this the other day, is as hectic as basketball season makes our lives, like life just feels normal again when the Magic are playing. Like having the windows open, a cool October breeze coming in through the living room, David Steele, Jeff Turner, Dante Marcatelli, Kendra Douglas, those voices coming through your speakers on the TV. You're eating whatever you want. You're drinking whatever you want to drink while you're watching those games. And then like you and I have the luxury of, hey, people want to make plans with us. Oh, sorry, the Magic play that night. Like that gets me out of so much stuff in life. Not really, but like the idea of that is really fun to be like, oh, hey, you want to do this? Sorry, the Magic play. I can't do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, looking forward to life feeling a little bit more normal, even though it's going to be more hectic.
Here's what I will say. Like when you look at it on the calendar view, like if you lay it out, the Magic have it on their website. The first few weeks are wild, man. Like the fact there are back-to-backs in 4 of the first 5 weeks of the season, right? Like we're talking like 3 games in 4 nights on 4 of the first 5 weeks of the season. Like there are a ton of games in the first 5 weeks of the season, which on the one hand, very exciting. On the one hand, it's like, look out, here we go. I hope not, obviously on the one hand, we joke about ourselves, we'll be very busy, but it's got to be tough for the team, right? Like you go from playing 2 preseason games, then you have 9, basically 10 days off, play 1 preseason game, then you're going to have another 5 days off. And then all of a sudden you go from 0 to 100 and you're just thrown into the gauntlet right away. So hopefully they're ready for it. Obviously, I know they do some scrimmaging in practice, obviously to simulate getting into game shape, but ready or not, here we go. It's about to get crazy real fast, but obviously I'm super excited for it.
All right, let's wrap this one up. That is going to do it for this episode. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!